of this meeting is for stakeholders in the BCH ecosystem to coordinate and communicate their plans about this upgrade. Viewers on YouTube are encouraged to ask questions in the live stream chat, and we'll do our best to get to them. So some Bitcoin Cash stakeholders have already announced plans to not implement any consensus changes for this coming upgrade. So Emergent Reasons, could you start us off with a description of basically what that means and what the reasoning is behind it?
Yeah, sure. So I'll be speaking as a representative of General Protocols, as a business operating on the Bitcoin Cash network. And from our perspective, there was an announcement, right, that you're talking about, where a number of the full node projects, maybe all of them, I'm not sure all of them, but many of them posted their intention to say that basically that they didn't intend to do any consensus changes on the network, and that there was no outstanding plans that were in any kind of condition to be upgraded in May in any case. And yeah, so General Protocols supports that. And we published an article as well that said, although there's some things that we would really like to see improved in the protocol, right? Not huge changes, but pretty reasonable changes and focused changes. Although we would like those and we really need those, it's not ready. So we wait, and we want to set up that culture, and General Protocols supports that kind of shift towards a culture where we get ready. We communicate openly, publicly. All of these ideas get aired out and beat up and reformed and refined. And yeah, we support that. So yeah, in May, no consensus changes. General Protocols supports that. But it did, maybe like you mentioned, that it does seem like some people are confused about no consensus changes means nothing happens. And I think that's not the case. And I think some of the people here are able to speak to that better than me. But there are, I think, some changes that people want to do that aren't related to consensus. And so it's improvements that don't really lead to any kind of split risk or anything like that. So yeah, I think it's a great place that we're starting from for May.
Sure. So could I ask maybe someone else to elaborate just a little bit on, why, so, okay, if things aren't ready, then obviously we shouldn't put them in, but there's obviously some extra risk to any upgrade, especially if it's not been prepared enough. So maybe it would be worth elaborating just a little bit on the history of how that turned out being the case, that maybe this time we should just not do anything, or at least that it could be that case at all. And yeah, anyone feel free to.
I'll join the conversation a little bit. So for May, there was an upgrade scheduled, and I think it's something that we all agree we will use it instead to help us take a breather and give our ecosystem some time to work on adoption and work on a stability. So when we said that we have a no changes goal, we now propose it's where most users do not need to upgrade their wallet or software this May. And I hope that this helps us get all the stable footing again, and from there to work with merchants and others in order to grow adoption. Because adoption is really the focus that I believe personally that our ecosystems should work on now. And as Emergent Reason said, it's really important to get new features in, but we can work on those at the same time in the background, basically, and then these people will have more time to get the better quality that we need. And I think we will also work on how to do upgrades in a better way going forward, because we all are very, very tired of conflicts that end up being escalated to unmanageable proportions. So if instead we end up having more conversations, we can avoid any of such confrontations ending up being too big to manage.
Sure. So before we move on to then non-consensus changes, would anyone else like to either ask a question or share an experience or share a perspective on this the decision on the not doing consensus level upgrades before we move on?
I forget how to raise my hand.
Oh, right. We should be raising hands, right?
Oh, well, I'm not even sure. Is that, well,
Is that
go
a
ahead,
thing in
Josh.
Zoom? All right.
May
Maybe
not
I'll
be.
just physically raise my hand next time. I think it's just a matter of keeping in mind that like the upgrade in May, a lot of nodes don't have to upgrade. Like literally, you don't have to upgrade your software if you don't want to. The exception would be BCHN because of some legacy carryover from the previous fork. The important distinction, though, is who has to upgrade and who doesn't have to upgrade. So with a non-consensus upgrade, wallets and users don't have to upgrade their software. If you're running a node, which if you're a business or if you are a user running a node, you should probably check with your node maintainer or implementation to see if you should upgrade or if you have to upgrade. I think that's the only real, miscommunication about what non-consensus means, and it's just who has to do what when, and historically everyone's tried to have to upgrade, but basically if you're a wallet user, nothing's going to be different from your software if you don't want it to be.
Appreciate you adding that, Josh. So I think we can move right on then to talking a little bit about the non-consensus upgrades, or however you want to call them, upgrades or changes, or that are going to be happening maybe this May. And I'm just going to open that up. Maybe Tom, you could start us off talking a little bit about the state of double spend proofs.
Let me just quickly check the chat. Okay.
Looks like Free Trader just sent a message. Would like me to do that one first?
Yeah, do that. Yeah.
Sure. From Free Trader, he says, I want to confirm what Emergent Reasons said from the point of view of Bitcoin Cash node. We are committed to the joint statement of a May upgrade without consensus changes. This does, of course, not mean we're not working on non-consensus changes. We are still working on an important non-consensus change, the increase of allowable unconfirmed transaction chain lengths. Okay.
It doesn't mean we're not working on non-consensus change. That's a pretty amazing sentence. Yeah, but
all right,
yeah,
so,
that's exactly right. There's
no
things that we can do.
Sure. So if no one would like to
the
respond or comment on that, you can go ahead, Tom. Thank you.
Yes, on the side of the non-consensus changes, I've been working with BCHN and others on at least double spend proofs, which have landed in BCHN just last week. We're also working on the follow-up for that to actually go on for the next step, which is to have the RPC, the interface between the node and other components. And the important part there is that all the nodes basically have the same RPC interface. So you still have the ability for middleware to just plug and play whichever node you want to run. And so BHHN has been working hard to actually implement some really good ideas there, which I'm pretty sure everybody else will just copy. And then the next step is to go up one level, which is the middleware. That's going to be the REST APIs, the Fulcrum, and others are going to actually use all of this to actually provide a yes/no answer to everybody that asks. Specifically, wallets are going to be very interested in that answer. So we're moving on to double spend proofs, and that is, I think, the main issue, the main project I'm also working on.
So just to quickly follow up from that, and I do see your hand, Emergent, so we'll be right to that. Could you, excuse me, sorry, I saw Emergent's hand and I lost my question. I'm going to take 1 second to see if I can remember what it was.
Might be the same question.
Yeah, it very well could be. If you want to go ahead, Emergent, I'll take a second.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to attempt to rephrase that in terms that maybe everybody can understand. So make sure I get this right, Tom. But I think the point with double spend proofs is that it will help the steps that are being taken by a bunch of developers and nodes and projects are to get it built up to the level that there's infrastructure, so that anybody making an app or a wallet or any kind of high level thing using Bitcoin Cash, they'll have an easy interface to just be like, hey, a transaction happened, and then they get an automatic notification that there was a double spend or something like that, and then they can say, hey, something's wrong, be careful with that transaction. And that will further improve the security of ZeroConf, so that we can continue to have effectively instant transactions and even better security on those instant transactions. Is that fair, Tom?
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very
Okay.
good description. The way that we're going, especially also with the longer chain lengths that BCHN is working on, is that we will need some more proof of ZeroConf being safe, and I think that's where we're going now, and that's kind of making really good progress.
All right, I have a message from Free Trader here. At BCHN, we'd like to thank Tom and the BU developers for pushing the double spend proof initiative. We think this will be really useful for merchants in the future. From the interfaces angle, I'd like to drop this link here for others to review. So there it is. This merge request is RPC interfaces proposed by Cal and Culiano. Thank you very much, Free Trader. I think one thing that would be worth clarifying as quickly as we can, whoever would like to take this, is this is something that's being worked on, and I guess this is a statement, feel free to then correct me, and there's not really anything that anybody but the people working on it need to do in the near future. Is that right? Or is there something that businesses should be thinking about?
So what we will end up with, if all of this is complete and all of this is working, is that point of sale systems and of course wallets that are receiving information will be able to say, hey, first step, I've seen a transaction that pays me, and then within a couple of seconds say, this is a transaction is safe, and you will get paid when the block gets mined. And so the only thing really needs to be done is when this all is done, when all of the technology is written, that people run the node and the wallet to actually use this information. And that's it. So basically, whenever you have the merchants, they will have a new feature in the wallet, and that's about it.
Very good, thank you. So before we move on, I think, Tom, you did already mention the unconfirmed chain limit. Would anyone else like to add on to the discussion on double spend proofs? Oh, sorry, Paul, you do have your hand up. My fault. Please go ahead.
Yeah, if I can jump in. So just to point out that BU has already implemented this in their node, in their client, both unconfirmed transaction chain limit to a much larger number, and the double spend proofs, obviously thanks to a huge part to the work that Tom has done on that. So these seem to be features that all node teams are working on to get them implemented on the Bitcoin Cash network. So like it's been reiterated multiple times, like it's not that work has stopped. Work is like absolutely still going on upgrading Bitcoin Cash. It's just the case that in the May upgrade that there's no consensus changes that are happening. But yeah, there's still major upgrades that are being worked on right now by each of the node teams. So yeah, I just wanted to point out that BU is totally on board with getting double spend proofs and long unconfirmed transaction chains added to Bitcoin Cash.
Thanks. I appreciate your clarifying that and adding it. Emergent reasons, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the question, Tom mentioned something that's very important, which is that the double spend work, and you also, John, the double spend work is not something that necessarily has to be related to Main. There's nothing that people really need to do. It's just that they're going to get a new feature. But it is important to know, right, that the people who are building Bitcoin Cash Network are thinking very carefully about the safety of everything and making sure that ZeroConf stays safe, even with these much larger unconfirmed chain limits and things like that. And another point that I wanted to bring up that I hope the other guys here can discuss, maybe not too technically, but a little bit, that although double spin proofs is something that pretty much anyone can start using at any time, the unconfirmed chain limit is something that needs to be coordinated. It has a timing element to it, in my understanding. And so the May upgrade, although rushed, right? The six, not rushed for these, but for consensus, right? We're doing no consensus. So, right, 6 months is very fast for consensus issues. But having that time point, that May time point, is actually very useful, I think, in terms of having some kind of coordination point for things like the transaction chain limit, which need coordination. But maybe that can shift over to the chain limit discussion and make sure that I'm saying the right thing here.
Sure. And so if anyone would like to add on, clarify, or maybe, just make sure we don't talk too much about really what it is, but more, what is it that people would need to know about it, and who are those people that need that information?
If I just jump in, so it's essentially, it would be like Tom pointed out, it's for either merchants themselves or people building the software for merchants. So if you take like a specific example, the Bitcoin Cash or the cash register app that Bitcoin.com works on, you would expect to see a notification pop up when a double spend has occurred. So it's essentially providing that information that the merchant needs at the time.
Right, and I apologize. I actually meant to move on to the unconfirmed chain limit. And so that's what I intended to move on to there. So that's my apologies. But yeah, for the unconfirmed chain limit, if we could move on to that, what would be, in that case, the people that need to know what to change, and also what does anyone else want to speak on, whether like is May 6th currently the plan? Is that something that has been decided or is still in the works? Does anyone have a specific proposal?
Oh, sorry, so maybe the best background here is that we started out with a chain limit inherited from Bitcoin Core because of a feature called child pays for parent. And that feature, when it was added, we ended up having a scaling problem. And it turns out when you have blocks that basically don't really get full and your fees are not going to shoot out of the roof, you don't really need that feature. And we might add it later, but basically the decision is that we can remove the feature child pays for parent and therefore have longer chains going. And this is what a lot of teams have decided and are going to do. We don't really have any coordination about, hey, this is the time we're going to do it, because as Emergent said, there is some reason to actually coordinate this. But I basically think that this is going to be done when all nodes feel comfortable that their software implementations are going to be stable enough. And, then it can be done within a couple of weeks, especially since we already know that the BCHN node has to be upgraded due to some legacy decisions. So when they have a longer chain, it's going to be much easier to get this rolled out. So I think that's the main thing with the longer chain. It's going to be a little bit of development work, and then it's going to just be coordination to roll it out. That's it. Not very hard.
Okay, then maybe that's something that's worth clarifying, is that so the coordination hasn't happened yet. And so is it the case that it may or may not be coordinated for this May 6th upgrade? And well, I guess that, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's basically
thanks
it.
Very much.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that Free Trader
Okay,
probably has a
sorry,
statement here.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm just seeing his messages. So to see where I last, let's see, discussion about interfaces. Okay, for the this is from Free Trader. Yes, for the unconfirmed chain limits, there is, as John mentioned, a coordination opportunity in May. This coordination to raise the limit from its current value of 50 transactions would need to happen between the full nodes on the network and particularly the miners. On BCHN side, we need to do some implementation and testing ahead of May to figure out the capacity of our software that we can safely underwrite. So thank you very much for adding that. It's valuable so that we can, everyone gets a feel for where exactly we are in the process. I said, I've said this in some chat channels before, but my feeling is that an increase to 500 is the low end of what we should be aiming for / be capable of. Very cool.
Nice.
And so, I guess first I'll open it up if anyone would like to add to or respond to what Free Trader said. I realized, this is a somewhat, this has been talking about dev topics, but obviously, if any business leaders who are or aren't involved in the tech have any concerns or anything they'd like to bring up just with current stakeholders, please feel free. And then if not that, then are there any other things that people would like to bring up about May 6th? Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'd just like to point out why this is an issue, because I've personally experienced it myself. So the first London meetup that we started, for over 3 years ago now, when you went to spend lots of transactions, we were trying to give away Bitcoin, essentially, Bitcoin Cash. When you try and make lots of transactions, you would come up against this limit. And it feels very, very stupid when you're trying to show people the power of this new money, and it just your app just goes, no, you can't send that money. So that you need to remove these barriers so that you can send money as whenever or however you like, essentially. So the issue is we want there to be as few barriers as possible to be able to spend the money you have. No one likes the computer to say no. So this is one of the ways of doing that.
Thanks, Paul. Go ahead, Mergent.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that, yeah, absolutely. You want to get rid of that type of friction and barriers that cause problems. And at the same time, I'll try to just talk about it at a high level. There's some other networks that just say, oh, there's no limits, do everything you want. And in reality, that doesn't work out, right? You break your network. So I think what we're doing with Bitcoin Cash is a bit of walking that tightrope of doing all the amazing things we can do, and also doing it in a realistic and safe way. So I think that's a great thing about Bitcoin Cash. It's one of the best things that that we're the most grounded in reality and focused on actually using it. And how does this look 10 years in the future when there's mass adoption and there's thousands and thousands of transactions per second and so forth. So yeah, I love that about Bitcoin Cash, that we're both trying to make it useful for apps and developers and users, and also trying to make sure that it's actually going to work in the future. It's something that doesn't exist in a lot of places in crypto.
Thanks very much. Josh, please go ahead.
Sure. Speaking to the transaction chaining limit, regarding businesses and what businesses need to do currently for the transaction chaining limit. This is something that we encountered in Dublin as well. You have to, a lot of businesses and software has to write limits specifically to know that they're chaining a transaction too deep, because you kind of don't get a good amount of feedback when you hit that limit. So a lot of times, if you don't cover that yourself, you'll submit a transaction and then it just won't get accepted, and you won't really know why or even that it happened. So for businesses that have already implemented that limit, they're actually in a really good position for the when this does upgrade, because what they can do is they can have the network upgrade ahead of time, and then when they're comfortable that it's at a state that it needs to be, they can reduce their own limit. So what can fundamentally happen, even if we do this in May or if we do this sometime after May, once the businesses that implement this limit like they can kind of go after the network. So it doesn't have to be this coordinated effort, say in May, where all of the nodes upgrade and we reduce this chain limit. And and all of the wallets and all of the businesses, we don't all have to do it together. Basically, the fundamental level should do it all at the same time for those who don't manually limit themselves, just because of it kind of reduces the security of zero conf if we're not all on the same page. But then the businesses themselves don't have to immediately update. So that's something that they can do at their own leisure. There isn't a stressful upgrade where if they don't do this, they're going to get forked off the network or anything like that. It's like this happened, and now if it's important to you, you can provide a better user experience for your users when you're ready. So I think overall, it's kind of, again, just emphasizing the low pressure and the low cost for businesses come May.
Thank you, Josh. Much appreciated. So I'm going to open up the floor one more time. If there's any
I'd like to
last thoughts? Yeah.
I'd like to jump in. Sorry, I can't find the raise hand button. So anyways, the people that I work with and talk to the most are people who like build on or use Bitcoin Cash, not really so much the developer side of things. So what I'm hearing is no consensus change, but like double spend proofs and changing the chain transactions. But I think what the people I talk to are most curious about and most interested in is there going to be a split? I mean, a lot of people are really like they've lived through the BSV. They just lived through the IFP. Last year was really hard for a lot of people. They're just kind of giving up interest. And so what I'm curious about is, it sounds to me like what you're talking about, the plan that you guys are talking about, is going to not let a split happen in May. Is that true? Am I hearing this right, that a split is very unlikely come May?
It would be very difficult for a split to happen at this point. One of the node implementations would have to go out of their way, and then they would also have to significantly increase their miner share, which for anybody other than BCHN is already it's an uphill battle. So I think users can definitely feel confident that there is not going to be a split of any kind in May. It would be very, very difficult for them to do that at this point.
And maybe something that I'll add quickly in between comments here is that it's worth noting that when we talk about consensus changes, we're talking about things that decide whether a block on the blockchain is valid. So splits only happen when there are differences in consensus rules. And that's something that we probably should have made clear a little earlier, but right, that's even, you could argue that's sort of what it means. And so, sorry, go ahead, Emergent.
Oh yeah, okay. So I think Josh's answer was great to recognize the reality that, well, anybody can split the network, but it's going to be like their own node, and that's it, right? Doing its own thing off on the side somewhere. So that's good, like to reflect that reality. And then at the same time, yeah, there's no chance of anything like that happening. There's just nobody interested anymore, right? In splits, there's nobody who wants a split. There's no I think it summarizes down to that. There's nobody who's interested in that, and we're still learning how to make things happen without a king, so to speak. So yeah, I think things are fine. We have work to do to figure things out, how to figure out process, how to figure out kind of consensus and discussion, and making sure that everybody's on the same page, and that ideas get considered and get a lot of time to be looked at and peer reviewed and so forth. So yeah, we have a lot to work out, but as far as splits go, yeah, no, there's no chance of that.
Good deal. And before I get to you, Paul, I'm just going to read most recent messages from Free Trader. He says on BCHN side, we need to do some implementation and testing. Oh wait, it's the same messages. I've said this in some chat.
Yeah, they're not new.
I thought I would do it, but they were not. My apologies. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it seems to me that the goal is not just to have no splits in May, it's just to have no splits in general, like for as long as is actually possible, which hopefully is many, many years. So, you know, this is kind of part of what these discussions are about, is bringing people to the table and getting as much buy-in from as many people in the ecosystem as possible, so that splits just simply stop occurring. So it's not just about May, it's about all the foreseeable future of Bitcoin Cash.
Very good. Well, that's probably a good note to leave it on, but I'll leave it open one more time for just a couple seconds if there's any last minute questions or comments anyone would like to make before we finish up.
Yeah, I'd like to just throw one quick one in, just based on what everyone said right now. Is there something in, like, is there something that we're working on that's going to make sure that after May, like Paul was just saying, that it's going to continue? We're going to be splitless for a while. Is that something that's a priority, or is there plans? Like, where do I learn what's going on with that?
I'd like to say something about that, actually. John, is that all right?
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think there's going to be more than one answer to that question. But it's nice because there's a lot of people who, you know, are motivated to say, yeah, we're really tired of this and it makes no sense, and none of the splits we've had any good reason for them. So yeah, let's stop doing that, right? Yeah. And in order to do that, I think there will be multiple answers, and we'll just try to figure things out. One thing that I'm working on is trying to get people who have specifically consensus changes, because like you said, the consensus changes in the protocol are the ones that you know, have a risk of causing some kind of split if there's a huge disagreement or whatever. But for anything like that, like I mentioned about getting ideas out in the air and well considered and a lot of feedback, in order to do that, I'm trying to push a kind of combination of format of proposals and process. So the chip proposal, the cash improvement proposal that Roscoe Callis has suggested. So taking that idea and making that kind of the format, right? You know, if you think something needs to be changed, or that it's a good idea, or it might be a good idea, then we have a culture of putting ideas out there in a relatively standardized format, and that format includes, you know, all kinds of information, like the technical ideas, what's the motivation, what's the business impact, what are the costs to people on the network, to wallets and so forth, what are the benefits to wallets and apps, and what are the benefits to holders and so forth. And then in addition to that, getting feedback, right, like an RFC, and making sure that we publicly record, hey, this is what these companies think about it. This is what those nodes think about it. This is what large investors, this is their opinion on it. So that format, I think, will be very useful to have as a kind of standard, like a social standard, that we say, oh, this new idea has appeared and it's very controversial. You know, it'll just be ignored, right? Oh, well, okay, well, it came out of nowhere. No one's discussed it. It has no feedback. There's no RFC. Miners haven't said what they think about it. Businesses haven't said what they think about it. It would just, you know, everybody would look at it and be like, get out of here. What are you talking about? So I think that's the kind of culture we need to set up, so that we have a permissionless network. There's no reference node. There's no single person calling the shots, but we also have a kind of process in place that helps us take ideas and digest them, and publicly comment on them, and work on them. And then eventually they get to a point where it's like the DAA upgrade, right? It got to the point where it was just obvious that there was not really any disagreement about it, except for notable exception, which was one of the cases that came out of nowhere. So there was just so much agreement on it and so much alignment that it wasn't even really a discussion. It was just like, okay, well, we're doing this thing. So I think we need to get to that point, and hopefully the chips will help, and maybe other people will have other ideas. So we'll see how it goes.
Sure, Josh, I'll get to you in just a second. I'll go ahead and read Free Traders' real new message. says, if there's no consensus change proposed, then yeah, essentially someone would need to force a split. And there's nothing of that sort on the horizon at this time. And I think the point of getting stakeholders together and discussing like we do here and in various groups is to better understand each other's need and to make it less likely that some parties will feel a need to split. We are fortunate that we as Bitcoin Cash survived the split with ABC in November without the same extent of damage to our network as the split with SV. But we absolutely recognize the damage potential of such splits, and that we need to cooperate to preserve the network effect. That's a very significant goal. So thank you, Free Trader. Please go ahead, Josh.
Sure, and kind of building on the plans for future splits and mitigations, and like basically doing what we can to responsibly avoid splits in the future. I think a lot of that has well, if we reflect on the previous fork, right, the ABC situation from November, the only reason that was even like a threat was because of this momentum with the with the quote unquote reference client, right? And I think we as a culture in BCH now are trying to move away from that reference client culture. And I think we've done a really good job with these discussions, and also just with the people that we have developing and ever kind of like the social aspect of what reference client is. But we also have like the technical component of what a reference client is. And if all miners are using the same implementation, it's kind of hard to truly say, hey, we're a diverse network. And we're making a lot of good strides this year for diversifying mining in Bitcoin Cash. In January, we released what we're calling the Bit Balancer, which is basically just a tool that sits in front of multiple nodes for miners, so that accidental splits can't happen. Well, not that they can't happen, that they really shouldn't happen. It increases it decreases the likeliness of an accidental split ever happening. And what that really does, though, is it gets miners the security to use multiple implementations, but it also kind of really and tangibly reduces the momentum of this concept of a reference client. And I think even the current status quo client, PCHN, has been very supportive of this goal. In order for the Bit Balancer to even happen, we had to have an RPC function merged into BCHN. And the original plan for us to do that was for us to make a pull request. So we were planning on going into their code base and actually like offering up this change. They are so proactive that they did it for us. We didn't have to actually write the code to do the merge request, which was amazing. Like, we would have never seen that in historic reference clients. So I think just again, the culture around our environment is substantially healthier. And I think if we with the progress we've been making with the adoption for Bit Balancer and multi-node mining, I think we're really going to see a healthy future where if any changes to the network are to happen, they are coordinated and intentional. So I think the future is really bright, and there's been a lot of effort, both technologically and socially, into getting us there. And I think we're going to see a lot of payoffs from that in the coming years.
That is awesome, Josh.
Very good. Thanks, Josh. Andrea, please go ahead.
Oh, first of all, hi, everybody. To address directly what Cameron asked for, I would say that there is no technical thing to make it so that we are going to avoid splits forever, or even on a smaller horizon, a year, 2 years, whatever. But I guess that the key point is the cultural layer that we are embracing in BCH. We went through painful growth process that I think helped the community to become a community that could embrace a culture that at the end of the day lead to a more cohesive and then resilience when it comes to avoid split. And everything that has been said in the last few minutes point exactly in that direction. And then the BCHN way of merging change without even waiting for contribution, the Verde project about the bit balance thing, all the thing that has been said is the thing that we need to continue to nurture. It has to be something that never stop. Is not a goal. It's a process. We need to continue to nurture this process. It's not. It's like freedom of speech. It's like democracy. Is a never-ending process to defend what we achieve in the last few months. So it is difficult, but we are human, and we know that when a community needs to grow, all the element of the community have to contribute to this growing process. And not saying that it's easy, but you know, the last few months, if anything, teach us that we could manage to achieve this kind of behavior that is needed to make it so that the community remain cohesive.
Very good. Thanks. Emergent, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if we're getting close to wrapping up or not, but just in case, I wanted to make sure to get in on this topic of, you know, like SigPig said, building the culture and process and all of that. We still have to work it out and figure it out, and everybody is still working on that in a very constructive way. And I hope that everyone watching this will really seriously consider getting more involved, right? Businesses who are working on Bitcoin Cash, you know, reach out, just start to listen and talk, and maybe assign someone from your company to stay aware, you know, to actually get directly involved with, you know, various channels and try to make sure that they're aware. You know, communicate in that direction, and then the nodes and other you know, infrastructure level projects should do the same, right? Like reach out to businesses and ask, you know, hey, we're thinking about this thing. Is this what you need, and so forth. So I think both directions need to go. And one way to do that is we're doing the Bitcoin Cash commerce meetups, for example. So weekly, I just run a meetup where anyone can come and talk about business on Bitcoin Cash, and it's been pretty fun. And I would love for people to get more engaged and be more aware. So there's that. I think Josh is also doing something, and there may be others. So before we wrap up, I hope anyone else here can talk about any efforts like that.
Sure, Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. So I think firstly, what John just brought up is a really like important part of this meeting, which is if you are using Bitcoin Cash for your business, like we are as we, by being like Software Verde, like you can reach out to us and ask us questions. We really want to facilitate you know, the knowledge transfer that businesses need in order to use Bitcoin Cash in a professional and reliable way. So in addition to the meetups that John's hosting, which are awesome, we try to attend. Like you guys can just literally email us or reach out on us on Telegram. It's just anything@softwareverde.com. But you can just ask us whatever you need, especially if it's business related, for, you know, hey, what's coming up in May, or how do I do this, or, you know, anything like that. Like we may not be able to help you directly, but if we can't, then what we'll do is we'll direct you in the right direction. So that's an awesome topic, and I really want to emphasize, you know, the openness for communication, to, you know, if you don't feel like you're on your own, kind of thing. And then to John's other point, we are hosting this is separate. We are hosting like a developer hangout, which is again kind of like a cultural change from what we were, you know, experiencing maybe even a year ago. Really trying to boost morale and coordination and just, you know, friendliness of the other development groups. So if you're a Bitcoin Cash developer and you want to you know, get to know the other devs and have some semblance of a you know, social relationship with them, then you can join our Discord. It's every well, I host one every 2 weeks, and I think John hosts one on the other week that I'm not hosting one, but I'm not exactly positive. But anyway, we will post the Discord link, and you can join us there. And it's, again, just a very casual, no agenda. Hey, what were you guys working on? Who wants to talk about whatever today? Like, it's anything from technical to, like, oh, my dog ate, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it's very casual. And again, it's really just meant to boost like the camaraderie between developers so that we don't have animosity. So that just kind of helps facilitate upgrades and facilitates new ideas when the ideas are not shrouded by this kind of like animosity towards the actual developer, and then they can be more focused around the idea itself. So you're welcome to join. Again, we'll post the link. But yeah.
And no questions are stupid. That's kind of the background, right? It's not recorded, so if you have like, oh, I want to do this and this, you can come in and say, what do people think about it? And maybe we'll have some better solutions. But we can talk about it. That's the point.
Very good, thanks. Josh, did you put your hand back up? I'm not sure if it was up before. No, okay, sorry. All right, well, I think that's probably a pretty solid place for us to wrap up. So I'd like to thank everyone in the meeting for taking the time to join us for the discussion. Everyone's busy, and it's I think, as people have pointed out already, it's extremely important to be able to, in a public setting, talk about these things, both for the benefit of the people discussing, but also so that people watching and following along can know what's going on in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem and can feel secure about what may be an investment for them or a tool or something valuable to their business. Either way, I think that's something valuable that you all have contributed to. And of course, thanks everyone for watching. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you during the next meeting. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.